DeRozan working on McDermott. On the drive to the rim. It's DeRozan again.
Oh, Mountain House.
Yes, sir. On DeRozan. The master at work.
Oh, let me get some butter with that roll.
Uses his body, his strength. The fake and the float.
Oh, everything coming up DeRozan.
So I tweeted this last night after DeMar DeRozan's yet again incredible performance in the fourth quarter to give the Bulls their fourth straight win, this time over the San Antonio Spurs. And it was that no one, and I mean no one, would have predicted that DeMar DeRozan would have the type of season he's been having like this in his 13th year in the NBA. Like seriously, even among the most optimistic or even sometimes delusional Bulls fans would have thought that DeRozan at the age of 32, after having been somewhat forgotten in the NBA, once traded to the Spurs, after having been viewed as a player that doesn't fit in today's NBA, with his inability to shoot threes and space the floor, after having been called the worst offseason signing this past year, like no one would have expected him to be putting on a clinic and leading the Bulls to one of the best records in the league. Again, I know some were more optimistic than others, and when I say no one would have predicted him to do it, it's more so than just his sheer numbers overall, although those alone are incredible, but more so, it's how DeRozan has been able to show up in the clutch this season that has truly made his performance this year remarkable, and why he has become the king of the fourth quarter. And that's what I'll be going over in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, you guys know I generally have my post-game videos out the night of the game, but as I mentioned in my video from yesterday morning, that although I would be watching the game and hosting the live chat, that once the game ended, I was going to spend the rest of the evening with my wife for Valentine's Day, and she's really been putting up with me in the time that I spend on this channel. And although that is technically, this video anyway, is technically going to be a post-game video for the Bulls win last night, I think it's only right to do a more dedicated, in-depth video on DeMar DeRozan. Not so much on how he's been able to revitalize his career in Chicago, because I made a video on that a few weeks back and don't want to sound redundant, but more specifically, how DeMar DeRozan has straight up turned into a fourth quarter assassin with his ability to take over games and get the Bulls to walk away with a win time and time again. And I think when you realize to what extent his level of impact in the fourth quarter is, when you look at the numbers in late game situations, you see that this isn't just a biased Bulls fan giving an arbitrary and subjective title to a guy just because he's on my team, but that he is in fact the king of the fourth quarter, and the metrics back up this claim. Now, aside from DeRozan's insane numbers that he's putting up overall in total, the guy is averaging a career high in points per game at 27.9, which is fourth best in the league. He's also doing so on ridiculous efficiency, shooting 51% from the field, and also a career best 33% from three, with an effective field goal percentage of 53%. He's also averaging 38.3 points per game per 100 possessions, which is second best in the league behind Joel Embiid, and he's also averaging 5.2 rebounds and 5.1 assists this season, which he is just one of 4 players to average 27, 5, and 5, the other 3 being Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Again, worst offseason signing, DeRozan is making nearly half of the respective salaries of those other 3. But yes, we gave him a bad contract. But these ridiculous numbers aside, it's what DeRozan has been able to do in the fourth quarter that is just eye-popping. DeRozan is second in the league in points per game in the fourth quarter at 8.3 points per game, only behind Giannis, who is at 8.5. But unlike Giannis, DeMar, who takes lower percentage shots, given that he thrives in the mid-range, he has the best field goal percentage in the league in the fourth quarter at an insane 55%. In clutch situations, when the game is at least within 5 points with less than 2 minutes to go, DeRozan actually leads the league in points per game, field goal percentage, and go-ahead shots. He leads the league in free throw percentage as well in clutch situations, and is second in the league in blocks plus minus in the fourth quarter, only behind Stephen Curry. But is first in the league in blocks plus minus in the last 5 minutes of the game, and he also leads the league in points per game in the last 5 minutes. Last night, as an example, which I don't know about you guys, but every shot that DeRozan put up in the fourth quarter, you just knew that it was going to go in, because it's like he's been able to discover a cheat code in late game situations where everything he puts up, it goes down. DeMar DeRozan had 19 points in the fourth quarter on perfect shooting. He didn't miss a single shot in the fourth quarter. 19 points on perfect shooting in the fourth. What's funny is that DeMar started off the game kind of slow. He went 1 for 6 to start in the first quarter. And I remember thinking, okay, this is a game where DeMar is finally going to cool off a bit, because prior to last night's game, DeMar was having an insane run, putting up 35 points per game in 6 straight games. And like every player, you think, okay, eventually they're going to have a game where they come down a bit, where they don't just go off. Like that happens to even the best of players. No one can sustain 35 plus points per game forever. But then after going 1 for 6, he finishes the game with 40 points on 16 for 24 shooting. He went 15 for 18 since starting off the game, 1 for 6, 15 for 18 in quarters 2 through 4. Just insane. DeMar continued his 35-point streak to 7 games, keeping up that streak that Michael Jordan was able to do so many times throughout his career. But again, more importantly, it's the way DeRozan has been able to show up for the Bulls in the fourth quarter, especially when they're without Zach Lavine, that has set him apart from everyone in the league, and why, at least this season anyway, DeMar DeRozan is the king of the fourth quarter. Now, like I said, I still did want to do a brief recap of the game from last night, despite the fact that I've kind of turned this into a dedicated video on DeMar DeRozan. But look, this is a great win for the Bulls. Like, yes, I know it was against the Spurs, who have had an up and down year. They're currently 22-36, 12th in the West. They're more or less rebuilding, but the Spurs always seem to get the best of the Bulls, and Coach Popovich usually seems to outcoach Billy Donovan. And really, up until those final 3 minutes or so, you weren't sure if the same was going to happen as it did in the last game that these two teams met. But again, DeRozan did DeRozan things and took over for the Bulls in the fourth quarter, which enabled the Bulls to get their 4th straight win despite still being very shorthanded. But it wasn't just DeRozan. Guys like Coby White and Vucevic stepped up and played very well. Same with Dosunmu. And really, for Ayo, even though his stat line won't pop out at you, that's because he, did what he was supposed to do and doing a great job at limiting DeJounte Murray. And that's because he did what he was supposed to do and doing a great job at limiting DeJounte Murray last night. Murray was coming off of back-to-back 30 and 10 games, but he went 7 for 16 last night, putting up only 19 points. And Ayo, who ended up fouling out of the game, was doing everything in his power to ensure that Murray wasn't being effective on offense, whether it be through scoring or distributing the ball from his passing with pick and rolls with Jakob Poeltl. He was able to limit the Spurs All-Star from lighting us up like he did in the last game in San Antonio. Ayo still finished the game with 12 points on 5 for 9 shooting, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. And I know we highlighted DeRozan in his insane shooting and clutch shots, but Coby White last night was incredible and hit some big shots in the fourth quarter. Coby finished the game with 24 points on 5 for 6 shooting from 3. And again, when you need Coby to show up like this, when Zach Lavine is out, you need to take the brunt of scoring off of DeRozan because he can't do it all by himself. Coby did what he needed to do. Coby also had 5 rebounds and 6 assists and only 1 turnover. He was also a team high plus 19 on the night. And it wasn't just Coby who was making up the brunt of scoring in Lavine's absence. Vucevic continues his strong offensive outings by focusing more in the paint and doing so against a strong defender in Jakob Poeltl. Vucevic is still really struggling with his outside shot, only 1 for 7 from 3, but inside he's been much more aggressive, much more calculated and efficient. He ended up finishing the game with 25 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 assists. He still has been turning the ball over at a high clip. 5 turnovers last night, this coming off 6 turnovers that he had the other night. Hopefully we see that trend go away, but in any event, Vucevic has been solid. There was a stat put out last night that in Vucevic's last 8 games, he's averaging 25.3 points per game, 13.6 rebounds, and 4.1 assists on 59% shooting. That is the Vucevic that we were hoping to see when making that trade last season and hoping that he can put up those type of numbers because we certainly are going to need it while this team remains shorthanded. Anyway, an all-around great win for the Bulls last night. The energy was there. The atmosphere was great at the United Center. The Bulls, with this win, are now just a half game from the top spot in the Eastern Conference behind the Miami Heat. And we'll look to close it out the week on a 5-game winning streak before heading to the All-Star break as they take on the Sacramento Kings tomorrow night. I'll have a live chat for that game. Until then, though, as always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.